Hey there, Editor Sean here before this episode gets going. As some of you may know, Jackson was moving this week, and as such, we had limited use of his microphones, so there's going to be a slight dip in audio quality for him. It's not terrible, the episode still sounds really good, but there might just be, there's a noticeable difference from our usual quality. So just bear with us in this time, and we'll get back to good audio soon enough. Thanks.
Standing on that ledge, you think you're gonna fly. If you take that long last step, we'll have to say goodbye. Whoa, whoa, whoa.
Hello, and welcome back to Beating a Dead Horse. As always, I am your host, Sean McKenda.
And I'm your host, Jackson Keller.
And last week, we talked about my first experience with a film series, more so a director. And this week, we're kind of changing it up a little bit, and we're going to talk about Jackson's first experience with the director. It's almost exactly the same thing, just flipped, because I've only seen a couple of them, and he's seen none.
And the film in question, of course, is Fast and Furious presents Calvin and Hobbes, the first officially licensed Calvin and Hobbes film, starring The Rock as everyone's favorite stuffed tiger, and Jason Statham as a older version of the once imaginative young lad, far more violent and grotesque than Watterson's original vision of childhood innocence and intellectual curiosity. It's a disgrace. It's a desecration to a man's work, and I can't believe that they would plunder a Bill Watterson's work like that. God rest his soul.
See, we all fucking knew this was coming, though. Like, this opened up with, you know, the Calvin peeing on the Ford logo, and it's like, ha 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 ha, he's peeing on things. Like, that already was a desecration of the spirit of the work. And for them to just continue to, it could only grow from there. There was nowhere for it to go but to get worse. And so this, I think, more than anything, is absolutely the logical conclusion of it. That said, I do think The Rock does a very good job as Hobbes.
I mean, he does pounce Calvin a lot in this movie. He just absolutely flattens him with his enormous chiseled Adonis body.
You know, and like the problem with that is not even so, it works very well. But I did have one problem, and that was the fact that every time before he would pounce on him, he would go ooh woo, and then afterwards he would go glomps you, and it was deeply uncomfortable to me.
I mean, you know, these hack directors inserting their outdated memes.
I mean, it's the only way to stay relevant with the kids.
I would also like to go on the record and say that no, you're not crazy. Bill Watterson is not dead.
I was genuinely worried for a second there, and also would like to go on the record and say I would watch that movie.
I would too, to be honest.
It sounds awful, but in a way that could be a lot of fun.
It's like the live action Super Mario Bros. Movie. We're talking about Hobbs and Shaw today.
Yeah. Let's get on track. And can I just say, that was an opening bit in which one of us did not immediately lose track of the bit. So, like, pat ourselves on the back. That's the first time we've done that in like 3 months.
Baby steps on the road back to redemption for us.
Was it a good bit? Probably not. But you know what? We fucking stuck with it. And that's the important thing.
If it's a bit, you must commit.
Oh, all right. Yeah, let's fucking talk about Fast and the Furious and Hobbs and Shaw in general. Because, as I said, this is a series that I have actually watched a number of them. I've seen at least 3, maybe 4 of them. I really liked them growing up. I have not watched them in years. I just kind of fell off when I went to college because my college dorm didn't really much care about Fast and the Furious, so we just never got around to it. I think I watched a little bit of one once when it was on TV. And so going back to it, I'm like, I'm curious to see how this holds up as a series. I've heard good things about it still, but let's find out. I liked it.
So for me, Fast and the Furious, like when the first few were coming out, was a thing that I never much cared to seek out. I've been on the record, particularly when it comes to games involving vehicles and driving that I hate driving and cars. So a whole series about cars obviously would not catch my attention. As time went on, it weirdly started to be something that was more on my radar, because around like the fourth or maybe the fifth movie, around like Fast Five, I caught whispers of it turning into this crazy like car-based superhero movie.
Was it when they jumped out of the plane with their cars? Was that what did it?
I think that's what did it. I think that was it. So yeah, like it was on my radar. I never really, like, I wanted to do a thing of it. I wanted to make a day of it and like watch the whole series, because everyone's like, oh man, there's all this lore, like, you know, it's like Dragon Ball, how all the like fucking villains, the last one will join the family, as is the meme. Yeah, so, but here, you know, here we are, here's the opportunity. Hobbs and Shaw, no idea who these characters are, other than they're The Rock and Jason Statham. And I must say, I walked out completely delighted.
I just to kind of qualify what Jackson was saying about the fact that the movies seem like they're about cars. The first few definitely have a focus on cars, but like it's one of those things where the action in the movies is all very good, that like even people who don't particularly care about car movies are really into these movies. Like if they watch it, they kind of get why people like them, because they're over the top, they're funny, they're weird, they're fucking crazy, and they're also pretty well directed. I mean, they're like B-movie schlock, but like in a way that's clearly very lovingly done. The action is comprehensible. Unlike Transformers, you can see what's going on. Hobbs and Shaw, there's a lot of action in it, and I never once went, wait, how the fuck did we get here? Even in like a lot of furious cuts. Like at one point I noticed that. I'm like, wow, these cuts are coming fast and furious, and yet I'm still keeping track of where everybody is, which is something that, I mean, even the Avengers movies have failed on a couple occasions.
Yeah, very, very shockingly well-directed action. I suppose maybe not so shockingly, because, you know, these movies, I wouldn't say they're well-regarded, but they certainly have their fan base, they're
pretty well-regarded. Like, I'm going to counter that and say, like, they might not be, like, the glowing movies of every year, but, like, most critics are like, it's stupid, but I like it. I haven't yet seen a critic who's like, fuck Fast and the Furious, man. They're just garbage shit.
That's fair. And so what I kept thinking throughout this movie is that this is what Transformers wants to be. Like, it's definitely a bro movie. There's definitely a lot of, like, machismo and, you know, big good old fashioned, like, 80s muscle man schlock. There, you know, there's fast cars, there's guns. But the thing is, the action is exceptionally well directed, I would say. Lots of memorable set pieces, and, you know, you never really get lost with what's going on. There's a lot that kind of sticks out in your mind, a lot of great, like, hype moments. You know, there's a lot of humor that's pretty lowbrow, but isn't like insulting to your intelligence. Unlike in Transformers, where Bumblebee pees on a man,
or in Transformers, there's also not a shit ton of just rampant advertisement, which is just another thing that drives me insane about Transformers.
Yeah,
looking at you, scene where they fucking crash a car, drink a Bud Light, and have a fucking Victoria's Secret ad in the background, clearly visual. The only thing, there was a magic, no, was Magic Bullet in this? I've watched a ton of shit this week. Was there a Magic Bullet in this?
A magic bullet?
No, there was not. Never mind. No. That's in Preacher. I've been watching a lot of Preacher.
Okay. Do you remember the scene of the first Transformers when a kid is purchasing an Xbox 360 and when Megatron uses the cube, it comes to life and like claws out his eyes?
No.
That happened.
Why would they say yes to that?
I'm not sure.
It seems like a way to not sell you that.
I mean, I still remember the scene, and I haven't watched the first Transformers since I was like 12, so...
You know what? Fair. I mean, counterpoint, though. Have you bought an Xbox 360 recently?
I mean, I did after I saw Transformers, not that I think those are necessarily related. Anyway, we're getting off topic. No, a lot of the more Like, this is proof that a bro movie doesn't have to be like this obnoxious, grating, terrible thing. You know, there's still room in this world for dumb, macho, almost 80s flavored fun. And the main thing that I was thinking about as I walked out is similar to how I felt about the Mission Impossible movies that I've seen, but this even more so, is that like this feels like a movie that doesn't really get made anymore. Like, just straight up like a sequel to an existing movie property, not based on like a particular source material, driven very much by star power. I mean, like, there's been a much to do about the death of the Hollywood star and how, like, you know, Tom Cruise and Will Smith, whoever, can't necessarily sell a movie on their own like they used to. But The Rock's one of those few actors. Like, I think he's one of the last, like, classical, like, Hollywood movie stars. He's just so fucking charismatic, and also is built like a fucking, like, JoJo character. He's got a real presence, but also he feels like a star. He's, like, macho, but not in the way that, like a Schwarzenegger or a Jean-Claude Van Damme, like, would be, where it's kind of, like, stoic badass. Where, like, The Rock's really affable, really, like, fun. He feels like an updated take on that kind of, like, action hero. And it's great.
Plus,
I love The Rock.
It helps that his public persona is also very good. Like, he's not one of those people where, like, you love to see him on screen, but then you're like, ooh, he's, you know, a member of Scientology, and I don't know why I would pull that after what you just said. But, like, his public persona is also very good. Like, there's just nothing that you can really... I'm going to say this, and then it's going to fucking bite me in the ass in 3 weeks. I pray to God it doesn't. But, like, he hasn't had any skeletons come up yet. Like, he's been very good, very, like... He doesn't embody the toxic masculinity that a man of his stature in the 80s would have.
Yeah, no, that's a good way to put it. Although I'm like, be prepared for the skeleton closets to open when he runs for president.
Oh, fuck me.
All that aside, though, no, The Rock's great. Like, I am much more likely to go see a movie that maybe looks kind of dumb, or like I'm not sold on it, if it does star The Rock, because I know that I'll at least enjoy him. And that's not really a thing anymore. Like, usually it's more about the... Like, there are actors that people like, of course, but it doesn't have the same, like, you know, we're coming to see Robert Downey Jr. No, we're coming to those movies to see Iron Man, or, like, Chris Evans is in this movie. No, like, people are coming to see Cap. Like, putting Chris Evans in another movie isn't automatically a guarantee that people come out in droves for him, wonderful as he is. So yeah.
Did Marvel kill that, actually? Just out of curiosity, just like as a side conversation, jumping off what you're talking about. Because, like, when Marvel started, there absolutely was a draw to go see Iron Man because it is Robert Downey Jr. It was his return to the screen.
Yes. I think that's a very interesting conversation. I don't know if, like, we can blame Marvel 100%. I think it was a paradigm.
We can blame Marvel for everything if we wanted to. It's not that hard.
It's not that hard. I think that they're very emblematic of the trend and maybe accelerated it just because of how much focus there was on, like, the branded characters. But I think with the emphasis on, like, franchise and adaptation that, like, we'd been moving toward, like, well before the MCU, like, started. And I think it was somewhat inevitable that people would be more interested in seeing Batman on the screen rather than any particular actor who once played Batman.
Just as long as it's not Robert Pattinson. Am I right?
Am I right, fellow gamers? Oh, lordy. But yeah, so, like, I think that the MCU is probably a big part of that. And if only because it was the, like, I think the area where it was most noticeable, and that, like, you know, like, oh, people really like Scarlett Johansson as Black Widow. Like, you know, there was a big push to kind of make her, like, a classical star in that way. And, like, it's obviously, like, she is a star, but, like, you know, when they made like that Lucy movie, people were like banking on, oh, like people are gonna want to see Black Widow in like a similar like action setting, when that isn't necessarily true. So I think that the Marvel dominance has made it more noticeable than anything else. But yes, it definitely is emblematic of the trend.
Fair. As I said, it was just one of those quick aside things that turned into an absolutely not quick aside, because that's what we do here. So allow me to take my own quick aside, and by that I mean start my own quick aside as opposed to take your aside and make it my own. Because this movie really worked for me on a totally different level too. Because if you are a frequent listener of the podcast, you know that I have one massive pet peeve with movies. It's something that I have talked about all the time in any sort of movie that has like sequels or extended universes or anything like that. And
remakes even.
Yeah, remakes is a big one. But it's the ability for a movie to stand on its own. And this movie was one that I was expecting to have to give a pass to, because like it's one of those, I've said for a long time, where like sequels, I think, do to a certain extent get a pass because you're expected to know what came before. Like there's lore that builds into each other. So like I was very much expecting to be like, it's a sequel. There's things that I'm not gonna get, whatever. This movie does an absolutely magnificent job of not alienating its audiences at all. There are moments where you're like, that's probably a reference to something, or like they'll be like 17 years ago this happened, and you're like, okay, I'm assuming that like that got shown at some point, whatever. But like you just keep rolling with it. You never once stop and go, well, wait, now I feel out of the loop. What the fuck are you talking about? So like I have to laud Hobbs and Shaw, this fucking stupid spy car movie thing, for being one of the best movies about this I've ever seen. I never once felt alienated by the movies. And like, I obviously have seen some of these Fast and Furious movies before, but like, Jackson, any alienation?
Not at all. And in fact, this is also something that I was very impressed with, because I have never seen a single Fast and Furious movie. My knowledge on the lore is extremely limited. I know there's Vin Diesel and his family. Paul Walker was a character until his tragic passing, and The Rock showed up at some point. And I'm pretty sure Jason Statham was the bad guy in one of them. I'm pretty sure The Rock was a bad guy in one of them too. But like, I'm not certain. Like, I was prepared to like be a little bit lost, but not once in this movie did I ever feel like I was lost or that I didn't know what was going on, either visually or in terms of the story. And I think that like really, because the best way to go about it is that you could make this movie stand alone, and that all of the like exposition and hints at like Hobbs and Shaw's past, I mean, it's just backstory. It's just backstory informing their actions and their roles in the story now. And like, yeah, you're gonna get more out of it if you know the backstory and have seen it, and it's probably a more like enriching experience. That's why people like having a bunch of lore and stuff to keep track of. But as it is, you get the idea that Shaw like has some like is like estranged from his sister. Hobbs is estranged from his own family. He's got a daughter. Like all the relevant information that you need. Idris Elba, the villain, he had a run-in with Shaw in the past, and anything beyond that, it's all just fluff. You don't need to know it. And the movie chugs along perfectly fine on its own.
Yeah, and like a lot of that stuff too even feels like just general spy stuff. Like a lot of spy novels are not necessarily in media res when they start, but like you don't start with a novice spy most of the time. You're like, I'm James Bond. I've been doing this for 20 years. And like, so there's lore behind it that might never be explained. Like, it's just things that you accept. Like, I've ran into this man before. Okay, cool. Move along.
Indiana Jones is actually a really great example of this,
yes.
Even though they are like sequels like to each other, and there are like a few recurring characters between them, for the most part, like it's just like Indy sees a guy in a country that he's been to before, and he's like, "Hey, buddy, like you were in that one time, and like the temple, like," and you get it, like they're pals.
Yeah. No, and I'm just blown away by how well this movie does, not feeling like it's trying to alienate people who aren't familiar with it. It's a very welcoming movie, and like I never really thought about it before, but there's almost like some. This is extreme, but it fits as a term, like almost gatekeeping to movies that do try and include things that are just obtuse references to other things that the series has done. Like, does that make sense?
I completely agree, and I think that's partially by design. I think that's to encourage people. I mean, again, you see this both with like the Marvel thing because it's the most successful like extended universe. But that's kind of the idea, is that like they want you to go out and feel like if you didn't see what happened in like Ant-Man and the Wasp, you're going to be really lost. And like so it encourages you to see all of them, and because there's so many movies, like it's a shrewd business plan, to say the least. But I think there's something to be said like for this approach. Obviously I can't speak to if the rest of the movies do it, but I think that's why, like, sort of as you say, they're so much more well regarded than a lot of other action movies, is that a lot of people did probably jump in like around Fast 5 when they heard that it was like wackier and kind of more over the top even than the previous movies, and they didn't need to like read a Wikipedia summary about all the lore and what what happened during Fast and the Furious HD Fast to the Future,
Well, like, the other thing too is I think there's something to be said too that it almost makes you want to watch the movies more, because coming out of this, I wanted to go back and watch the rest of them just to see what everything was, because I had fun with this. I want to have fun again. I want more fun. And like I feel like if there's just a bunch of barriers to entry, you're like, well, that was fucking obtuse. I don't want to do this. Like I don't care about the rest of this. Fuck off.
No, completely agreed. I definitely would. I would watch another Fast movie again. Completely successful on that count. I'm all in at this point.
Oh, cool. Do we have anything else we want to talk about before we talk about spoilers, or do we want to just jump into that and talk about the things that we like about this movie and everything?
I think we can go ahead and talk about spoilers, because we have some other topics that we want to address, but most of them are pretty spoilery territory. If you're looking for just if you're skeptical, that's the last thing I'll say. If you're skeptical, if you're like, just a bunch of dumb bro movies, go try out Hobbs and Shaw. You might find yourself pleasantly surprised.
I really liked it, and honest to God, I would probably recommend the rest of them too. From what I remember, I really enjoyed them growing up, and I never really, they've always been goofy and weird and just like high octane, yeah, go fast, and not like, oh, well, this is a V8 Hemi placed in a Mustang convertible. It adds extra 6 horsepower to its overall speeds. If you follow this, you're going to see that there is NOS attached. And this is all car guy talk for car guys. Everyone else, go fuck yourselves. No, next week, though, we're going to be talking about scary stories to tell in the dark. I am very excited about this. I know not that much about what we're getting into with it, honestly, but I'm fucking pumped.
Is this going to be like the edgy version of the Goosebumps movie with Jack Black?
I hope so. Like, good scary kids movies can be really good.
Yeah, I'm pretty pumped too, even though the only thing I remember about scary stories to tell in the dark are those fucking horrifying illustrations that were always in the library.
On the cover, yeah, it kept me away from them because they're just like haunting and negative and just like, I don't want to go fucking near that, man. I'm staying away. But Guillermo del Toro is attached, and that's all I need to know. So,
wait, is he directing?
Let me double check.
Gonna say, because if he's directing, gentlemen, you had my curiosity, now you have my attention.
No, Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark is being directed by Andre Orvdal. I think he's producing it, which I'll take a production credit. Yeah,
Producer's still a pretty hands-on role. wonderful. It's like really the way you can tell. For those of you who are unaware, if you want to get a feeling for how involved a particular person is and they're not the director, check and see if their credit is producer or executive producer, because executive producer is just the money guys and they probably didn't even come on set at all.
Yeah, Del Toro is a producer and also has a screenplay credit. So
sick.
Fuck yeah. That was Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark preview hour, I guess. Because that was way more of a conversation about what's coming up than we usually have.
Hobbs and Shaw, then.
Yeah, Hobbs and Shaw. Let's talk spoilers. So here's my question for you. Do we want to get the heavy stuff now, or do we want to do the fun stuff now?
Oh, let's do the fun stuff now in the spirit of fun. I like having a big, heavy, like, truth bomb dropped at the end.
Then let's fucking talk about that helicopter daisy chain, because that was fucking stupid as shit, and I loved every second of it.
So that's what's really great, as I had mentioned, previously, is that, like, unlike Transformers, there's a lot of really, like, well composed, like, striking images, even if they're very dumb images in terms of the action. Lots of wonderful set pieces. The daisy chain is a highlight. My personal favorite is when The Rock Goomba stomped into Elba from a skyscraper.
Yeah, buddy.
And, like, that bit was in the trailer for a little bit when, like, you know, they're like, all right, let's go down. Like, all right, The Rock, like, heroically leaps into action off this skyscraper, and Shaw's like, nah, fuck this. I'm gonna go in the elevator. And they have their little bickering.
Speaking of fuck this, though, the fucking F-bomb in this movie was great.
Where was it? I don't remember.
Way early on. Like, they just did not waste time on it when they're like, they're gonna work together, and they both just go, fuck no, at the same time.
Oh, right, yeah.
No, that was fucking great. Sorry, continue. I just need to jump on that.
No, yeah, and so, yeah, and there's, like, that. The other thing, too, is that, like, it's a very simple character dynamic, but it works as like a gimmick of, you know, lots of macho posturing between Hobbs and Shaw and like bickering and stuff. Sean, you had mentioned in the pre-discussion that it does get a little tiresome, which I agree with, but for like the early part of the movies, I think it works really well.
There's a little bit, I think, right about after the Goomba stomp, honestly. They keep bickering for a little bit, and it gets a little tired. Like, it kind of felt like they gave some insult comic the script and just said, here, write until you're tired, and then he did. And then that's most of the first part of the movie. Which it actually comes back, like, later on, the swing and insults come back, but like it's more of like a buddy insults, and I think it works again. There's just like a little bit there where it overstays its welcome, and you're kind of like, all right, I'm done. Talk about something else, please. And then it swings back around. You're like, all right, I'm back into it now. So.
No, yeah, in the dialogue, it definitely gets tiresome of, like, you know, look at this guy, am I right, fellow gamers? Like,
he's short, like, he's big.
Big, dumb, rock brain, short, Jason Statham manlet.
And they're sharing a house together. This Sunday on ABC Family, it's Hobbs and Shaw.
So the dialogue, in that regard, does get a little tiresome, but I think that the, like, non-dialogue bits where they're kind of posturing and bickering are really good. Like, the skyscraper scene, I think that's really funny and works really well.
Oh, man. They mouth words at each other all the time and, like, just do a lot of body language stuff that plays real well. Like, they ostensibly sneak in a couple more fucks in there just through the fact that they don't audibly say it.
It's real churlish and childish in, like, the exact way that it needed to be.
Yeah.
And so I think the standout is the hallway scene.
Oh god, the hallway scene is so fucking good. Where they got two doors and they both have to pick one, and so, like, Statham gets one filled with guys and The Rock gets one, just takes them out real nice and quick. They need an eye match on the scanners, and The Rock just slams his guy against it and ding, done. And then Statham has to go through body by body as The Rock just makes fun of him through, glass that he can't talk through. It's so good. It's all visual, and it's just great gags. It's well edited, too. Like, the pacing is right where it needs to be. It's great.
Yeah, no, I mean the editing, the directing, like most of the gags, aside from like, you know, the kind of quips that overstay their welcome, like the actual like set pieces and gags all work really well. If I had one complaint about the movie, it's this. It's that as far as pacing, it feels a little weird, and that the movie kind of reaches a natural climax in that scene where they blow up like the secret base and have like a fist fight with Idris Elba on the truck. And then you find out that the machine to extract the plot virus from Shaw's sister has broken. And that's when you kind of realize, like, oh, wait, we're not done yet? Like, oh. And don't get me wrong. The stuff that happens afterwards with the truck daisy chain and The Rock in a fucking skirt with his big, oily, muscled body and his tattoos, like, sending a legion of bros with, like, you know, knives and hammers and, like, other, like, you know, traditional, like, Samoan weapons. It's fucking great. It's a magical set piece. But it's a bit of an adjustment when you realize that we still have more plot to do.
There's a lot of plot after the building blows up, and it is kind of wild, because I'd assume that, like, that was kind of the resolution, and we're getting into the third act, or it should be relatively quick and simple, but, like, there's an extended bit to it. Like, I feel like usually the third act is somewhere around, like, 15-ish minutes, depending on, like, how you want to look at it. It's got to be, like, 30, 45 minutes of a third act in this one, and, like, the other problem with this too, I think, even beyond just the fact that there is a weirdly long third act that kind of feels like it should have ended after this huge explosion that definitely feels like the climax, is that it transitions hard from goofy spy movie to definitely Fast and the Furious, because it goes from, as I said, spy movie, and then it's all about family. It's all about reconnecting with the loved ones and, like, finding your own family, and Ohana means family, and like, that's what it is. It just turns hard. It, like, the filmmaking kind of shifts in a way, because, like, it's a lot, the camera work is a lot more actiony in the spy movie set. It feels a lot more static in a way, and, like, cuts to show the action. It's a lot more dynamic, swooping shots in this for establishing scenes, which is it's such a weird juxtaposition that doesn't feel quite right. Especially, and, like, I think the big thing with that too, even beyond just the fact that, like, there's different editing styles, because, like, it does maintain some of that Fast and Furious editing. I keep saying that it's not an intentional pun, I promise, but, like, it is literally Fast and the Furious editing. Like, in the beginning, your establishing shots were all done with, like, my first thought is Agent Cody Banks style.
What?
I don't know. I just have this distinct image in my head from, like, an Agent Cody Banks ad where you get, like, multiple shots kind of overlaid on each other in, like, different corners of the screen. And, like, that's, you know, it's a very spy way of, you know, establishing where you are, what you're doing. I don't know why my mind went to Agent Cody Banks. There's going to be, like, 9/10 of our audience is going to be like, what the fuck is this guy talking about?
Wait, while we're going on about millennial kids movies, I have a follow-up from last week.
Okay.
So as is semi-commonly known, the broader, like, every Tarantino movie is connected in one way or another.
Yes.
And apparently, officially, this includes movies beyond, like, ones that Tarantino has made, and has gone into a few that Robert Rodriguez has made, including Machete.
Yes, and I think I know where this is going, because if this is going where I think it is, this is the best fucking thing.
I did not know this. I think you know it exactly right. So apparently, Danny Trejo plays Machete. Is also in the classic question mark 90s children's film, early 2000s children's film, Spy Kids. And apparently Danny Trejo's character in that is Machete, meaning that it is canon, meaning that Spy Kids is canon to, like, the entire Tarantino verse.
So allow me to take that a step further and make it a little bit darker. The plot of Machete is the fact that his grandkids get murdered, and he goes on a rampage.
Wait, is he their grandfather in that movie?
No, like, the plot of Machete, like, I don't know if it's necessarily exactly their grandfather, but, like, it's the fact that his, like, whoever the relation to the Spy Kids are, like, the fact that, like, it's his sister's family or his brother's family or whatever, that family gets fucking got, and he goes on a rampage because of it.
That's amazing.
Yes.
What madmen.
Fucking Robert Rodriguez is insane, and I love him for it.
All right, so Agent Cody Banks.
Yeah, Agent Cody Banks. No, so, like, it's one of those things where, like, it changes from these, like, corner shots of establishment, you know, very spy style, to these sweeping establishing shots that feels very weird. It's a definitive signifier that the movie has changed in a big way, and, like, the thing is, like, it doesn't really feel like it should have. Like, it just kind of suddenly is still the same movie, but a little bit not, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, there's a very palpable quality. I think part of it is just the tone, in that, like, we are, like, it's gonna be a while before our next big wacky action scene. There's not a lot of humor in this part, like, where they're going to Samoa, and, like, The Rock confronts his brother and has, like, a heart-to-heart with Shaw's sister, and, like, they have their little reunion. Played very straight in a way that, like, nothing else in the movie really is. And yeah, there is something else, like a visual, maybe heaviness isn't the right word, but, like, that it does kind of slow down. Like, there's very noticeable change that makes the pacing feel a little strange.
Like, there's also a lot more focus on, like, the beauty of Samoa in it as well. I wonder if they got paid for that.
Surely they must have. That's pretty common. And I mean, it worked. It was it was very nice. It was marvelous.
It totally was. But, like, that was just a kind of sudden realization of, like, I wonder if they got paid, because, like, they definitely took some care to show that, like, this place looks gorgeous, and I was like, I kind of want to go there now. It looks really pretty. I don't know.
I mean, probably didn't the tourism board of, like, New Zealand pay Peter Jackson, or, like, do something special for him because he shot Lord of the Rings there?
Oh, I'm sure. I know New Zealand loves the fact that Lord of the Rings was shot there, so probably. I mean, I know it's not uncommon. It's just more, like, I'm just trying to process the various reasons for why this final act feels so different, despite ostensibly still feeling kind of the same. And I really do think it's the fact that it goes full Fast and the Furious. And the reason it doesn't feel totally alien from the rest of the movie is that the rest of the movie is in the Fast and the Furious vein. And, like, that sounds like it's the most obvious thing in the world, given this is Fast and the Furious presents Hobbs and Shaw, but, like, it's such a different movie from at least the few that I saw, where it was all about car racing and, like, doing wacky stuff with cars, whereas this is much more punch face go hard type of thing. So I don't know, I think it flows weird, but not too weird. It works.
It's not a deal breaker by any means. Yeah, it's an adjustment, but, like, once you've adjusted, it's satisfying. So.
Plus, once the action gets going again, as you said, it turns fucking wonderful. Like, the car daisy chain NOS thing was stupid and wonderful. The end shirtless fist fight is so good.
It's like they go over a cliff, and as soon as they do, a storm kicks up. They have a shirtless fist fight in the rain. They, like, dual tech Idris Elba in the face, and he, like, his big scary President Eden computer boss, like, shuts him down because he's a robot. And then he falls into the sea. He falls into the sea. It's perfect. It's so over the top.
Oh my god. Oh, really quick though. what the fuck happened to Fast and the Furious that we're just like, oh yeah, this dude's a fucking robot? Did something happen somewhere along the way in this series that like there's just robots now? Are androids common? Can someone tell me this? Did I miss something?
So I'm assuming this must have been like in that like 5, 6, 7 era. Like, right, that had to have, like, they had to have been making, like, gestures towards that. This cannot possibly be the first robot, because, like, I knew that these movies were basically over-the-top car superhero movies, but, like, I didn't realize as soon as, like, Idris Elba had gone full Master Chief, like, with his, like, scanner eyes and everything, I was like, yes, yes.
Yeah, it was... This movie, man, this fucking movie. I actually, just while I've been going on this tear about the editing and like style and whatnot, I really liked the dual editing stuff in the beginning.
I was actually just thinking that too. Like, I just remembered I'd been, like, because I just walked out of the movie, so like the stuff towards the end is like more in my mind. But yeah, like that really sells the conceit very well. Like the mirroring that they do, and like the like various like seedy like crime bars and strip clubs, and you know they eat their breakfast, they say hi to their family, and yeah, that the way that was constructed was wonderful.
It was very good. I will say, just as an aside, I was a little bit worried about what this movie was gonna do when we got like that close up of the woman's ass for a second there. Like, do you remember that?
I do remember that. That was that was definitely very noticeable. I kind of maybe this is an off-base assumption that I had. I kind of assumed that's just what Fast and Furious was like, but then that was like the only part in the movie that was really like that. So I don't know.
And
maybe
then
I'm wrong.
The Rock went on the tear about like, this isn't the 1950s anymore. You can't, couldn't tell your sister not to sleep with me. Weird thing going on there. But like beyond that, like just like the juxtaposition of ass to women have autonomy. Strange? I don't...
Definitely strange.
Like, they're both very much one-shot things, so, like, I don't think you should really look into it too much, but, like, I can get why the ass would be off-putting to people, and I also... Like, then they kind of play lip service to women have autonomy. It's a very strange moment there.
It almost feels like, to me, like you have your ass shot because you want, like, in the end, like, your primary audience is still horny teenage boys, but then they realize, like, oh, that's not really kosher anymore, is it? Well, shit, we better put this in too. I don't know. What can I say? I can't read their minds.
No, it's just weird. That said, if you go see this movie at like 10:45 on opening night, which you can't anymore, but I did because I was stupid and I was like, oh, I need to stream, and then go watch Hobbs and Shaw, a 2-hour and 15-minute movie at 11 fucking o'clock. A, the theater will be empty, and B, there won't be anyone there under 25. So, if you want a little suggestion on how to watch this movie without horny teenage boys, there you go.
There weren't a lot of horny teenagers in my audience, but
that's
a lot
because you live in the middle of fucking nowhere.
Well, fair point. But I was gonna say more like a lot of very young children, which I guess makes sense. There's nothing in this that I would say is particularly objectionable, but it was still a little weird.
I mean, it's not even like gory or anything. There's one F-bomb as is allotted by the PG-13 rating, but like. It's pretty harmless. It's arguably less harmful than like Jurassic Park, because I feel like Jurassic Park can traumatize.
Jurassic Park's really scary, yeah. Whereas like the Rock in particular is just like a big cuddly living cartoon, and like that's his persona, and as far as acting goes. So yeah, I don't know.
He is just fucking Maui from Moana, so
yes. But yeah, I mean, like, not that it was super weird. I'm like, I mean, yeah, it makes sense. But I feel like I wouldn't expect as many parents to be so enthusiastic about, oh yeah, let's go watch the big car explosion movie with little Timmy.
I mean, it could also be that, like, the parents were in their 20s when the first one came out, because this has been going on for, like, 10, 15 years at this point. When did the first Fast and the Furious come out? Hang on.
I want to say it was like 2001, right?
Fast and the Furious. 2001. Yeah, it's been 18 years. There are children that are legally adults since the time this series started. That's a weird sentence.
Including, I mean, you know, us.
Well, I mean, yes, but I'm saying, like, born to adulthood. It's been 18 literal years.
Incredible.
All right, let's talk about the heavy shit.
Let's get into it. Let's return to a favorite topic of ours: climate change and movie villainy.
Yes, because this one stuck out a lot to me. I don't know why it was this one. We talk about this a lot just because this is such a big thing in film right now. Making your villain like a climate change. Somebody who's like, dude, climate change is real and we need to fucking stop it. Which, correct. But it's such an easy. It feels like it's been such an easy shorthand to say, this is our villain, but he's sympathetic right now. Because like a lot of movies give this to him. Looking at Godzilla, looking at Kingsman 1, like it's you push this on them and say
Venom had it.
Right, Venom. Like, I know I'm forgetting things, even in things that we've talked about.
Yep.
So like it is very easy to just put this on, like, you've got a villain but you want to make him sympathetic, make him care about climate change, or make him say fuck capitalism, because that'll get them millennials horny for it.
Millennials get randy for communism.
So like it's really interesting, like, how this has developed into its own shorthand for sympathetic villain. And like it raises two questions for me. The first being, when, like, has this been done in film before? Because like it's one of those things where it's hard for me to say, as like this is when I'm kind of entering the age of recognizing politics. Like I've been in there for a while, but like more than anything, kind of like politics and media, and starting to feel like a genuine rage towards our world as it spirals into hell. So like I'm kind of picking up on the villains and being like, wait, why do I like the villain's motivation? Has that ever happened before in film is kind of my question. And two, does the fact that the villains are egomaniacal, climate change, not supporters? That's not the word. There's, what the fuck?
Eco-terrorists, I think, is the simplest way to put it.
Eco-terrorists is what we're going to go with. Egomaniacal eco-terrorists. Is that, like, damaging to the climate change cause in some way? Because, like, I feel like for the most part, especially, like, with this movie, it brushes over the eco-terrorism lickety-split. So, like, I don't really think that anyone's going to look at this and be like, well, yeehaw, that there villain believes in climate change, which means I'm sure not believing in that climate change. Yeehaw, back to the coal mines.
Gotta harvest that clean coal.
Absolutely. It's clean energy. What can you say? So I don't really see anybody doing that, but like with enough repetition in the media, like this is how stereotypes and like the fucking redneck stereotype that I just did get started. Like, is this harmful beyond the short term?
So those are two very interesting questions,
And also very big questions. I'm just like, hey, here's two questions. Don't answer the first one until I ask the second one. Now, good luck.
So with the second one, my inclination, I have a little more of a solid answer for this, in that I feel like any potential like damage, as far as like, you know, treating the issue with seriousness, is going to be minuscule in a movie like this compared to like the corporate propaganda that is put out, and like Fox News and the Republican Party and all that shit. Really, at worst, the most I could see is that like morons who already had their mind made up about this are acting even more moronic. Like the people the people who would probably take this seriously are probably already too far gone. Like, I can't imagine anyone seeing Hobbs and Shaw or like Venom or whatever and being like, oh, you know, those Silicon Valley like capitalists and they're and you know, all they're doing for climate change, like science is a lie.
I mean, in defense of Venom, I can't really see anyone watching Venom.
That's true. But yeah, so like, does it contribute negatively to like the overall conversation? Perhaps. I think it's noticeable with this movie because like obviously they want to unleash a virus to like cull the population, and that's bad. But then again, for every like person who will see a movie like this and feel justified because they're the villain, like there are just as many people who believe that Thanos was right, and Thanos' plan is even stupider. So yeah, so like I do think there's something to be said for like an overall like anti-science, like encouraging that kind of mindset. I noticed that because like the climate change is lighter. It's a lighter flavor here than usual. I think the bigger focus is on like the cybernetic transhumanism angle. And like, I'm just thinking like, sure, dude, like sign me up, like make me like, you know, a fucking Superman with all this like
hell yes, retweet.
Yeah, no, I'm all about that transhumanism. And like, you know, not that I'm like particularly fussed, but
also let's cut the fascism part of it out, but like the robot part sounds cool.
Yeah, like upgrading your body with cybernetics. So like that's one thing. I think as far as the sympathy of the villains, I think that's a super interesting topic, because I'm wondering, like, to my knowledge, like, villains historically have not been really that sympathetic. I feel like that's a more recent phenomenon, especially in big action movies like this. Even as recent as, like, Indiana Jones, right? Like, Indiana Jones fights Nazis and, like, you know, people who enslave children and, like, rip people's hearts out and all that stuff. There isn't really a coherent motivation beyond kind of just, like, power for its own sake, or even like, you know, old Star Wars versus like pretty much anything after the original trilogy. Like they try to make Anakin sympathetic, like Kylo Ren has like some weird sympathy things going on, even if the overall First Order is just like full fashy, you know.
I was gonna say Kylo Ren works.
Oh, totally. I'm not saying this is a bad thing. I think it's interesting. I think that the impulse to try and give your antagonist more depth is overall a good one. And I'm wondering if part of it is like that you think back to like early films, right? And you have like World War II, where like a lot of movies made in that era were just straight up propaganda. And then like ditto going forward with the like 50s and 60s, like the Cold War era, like the villains were always like the Russians or the communists, because they're like the world stage was so defined by like a binary.
See,
like
I was actually thinking about that era in particular, with like wondering if there were people who like saw the villains and recognized, you know, I wonder if there's something to it. Just because like I know like patriotism ran rampant through that era, but like at the same time I have to, like, history is defined by the victors, but like I can't imagine that there wasn't that subset of people, especially with like the hippie movement, but there wasn't that subset of people who were like, hell yeah, brother, communism all the way, fuck yeah, go for it, like in that era as well. Like that's what I'm thinking of.
Definitely. And I think that there probably were movies like that, like independent films, but I think the other thing that I actually just remembered would have been the Hays Code. And I think that it was pretty much codified into like movie law that you can only make your villains like so sympathetic. And like if you look at old Hitchcock or like James Bond films, like the villains are charismatic. Like sometimes, I mean, Hitchcock in particular, usually the villain would have like some sort of motivation, but Hitchcock also got in a lot of trouble, like in a lot of controversy for trying to skirt around the code. So I think that like this is an impulse partially driven by like a less binary world. Not that the world wasn't always complicated, but like there is no easy framing today, like that you can even try and fit things into, like East versus West. And yeah, I think just overall, like the political situation post Berlin Wall makes it a lot harder to do just like here's a bad guy that you can accept unquestionably. And also, even for the filmmakers who did want to have a little bit more nuance in their villains, like Hitchcock, they were limited insofar as the code wouldn't allow like a presentation of communism at all without like a firm, like, you know, no, like slap on the wrist, bad.
The full Red Scare on that, yeah. I totally forgot about the Hays Code, which kind of throws off my whole thesis behind this. My whole bit of like just kind of introspection and wondering, because like the Hays Code really just says, yeah, no, absolutely fucking not. So,
well, I do think it's still an interesting question to consider, because I do think there's more to the desire to have not necessarily sympathetic villains, although they take that format a lot of the time, but even just like presenting the villain's motivation as like something understandable or something desirable, and like or like something sort of like intoxicating, like to like tempting. Because like I'm thinking off the top of my head, like Dark Knight Joker is a real great example of this, or like Tyler Durden from Fight Club, where the implementation.
Wait, so you're saying I should want to be like Tyler Durden in this situation, right? And the Joker, like I want to emulate these male masculine figures in my life.
You want to go to Hot Topic and Spencer's Gifts and buy up all the Heath Ledger Joker and Tyler Durden merchandise, and you want to get damage tattooed on your forehead.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure, because like these are characters that are famous for being like icons of masculinity and things that you should seek to emulate. So I just want to make sure we're on the right page. In no way are these, you know, satirical or trying to steer you away from toxic masculinity.
Right, and so like but that's the interesting thing, is that like making those characters like in some ways very appealing, like makes the movies themselves more compelling. But, you know, then you're always gonna have smooth brains who don't get the point. So yeah. I don't know.
No, I like, it was one of those things where like I definitely recognize I was totally playing into your narrative. So I hope that came across.
Amazing.
Well, cool. We just took Hobbs and Shaw and made it about a discussion of toxic masculinity and the Cold War era and communism and socialism and everything like that in the way that we do.
Maybe you learned something about the Hays Code that you didn't know before.
Or if you didn't, go look it up. It's really fascinating stuff. The history of TV and film, very interesting. You should check it out. Anything we want to wrap up with? Anything else before? Do we have a high note?
Hobbs and Shaw is a lot of fun. Watch it instead of Lion King.
Watch anything instead of Lion. Watch Venom instead of Lion King. All right. There's some joy to be had in Venom. It's not a good movie. Hobbs and Shaw is much better, but there's some joy to be had in fucking Venom. Listen to the Lion King. Don't watch it.
I'll ask you this: does Lion King have a scene where Tom Hardy bathes in a lobster tank at Red Lobster? I don't think so.
That scene needs to be immortalized in the most immortal way possible. I don't know where I was going with that sentence, but it needs more recognition is what I'm saying here.
Oh, great.
Well, I've been Sean McKinda. You can find me on Twitter at Sean_McKinda. You can find me on my Twitch page at twitch.tv/helpless_Skippy. You can find my writing over at 25yearslatersite.com. I don't know why you would want to do any of those things, but you can.
And I'm Jackson Keller. You can find me over at Twitch twitch.tv/Jackson J. Keller. So I'm moving. This will be the last recording I'm doing here in my apartment, which hopefully means that we'll be able to do some more like arty farty stuff reliably, if only because I won't be too far away from even where Sean lives, so we could just go see it if need be on a weekend. Yeah, so hopefully this will be a great move for the podcast, giving you that sick content, but the downside is I won't be streaming for the week, but you should go check out my channel anyway, because once I am back, I'll be doing some Mario Maker, be doing some Smash Bros, be doing some Fire Emblem Three Houses, streaming a full playthrough of that. It's going to be a great time. It's going to be tremendous, terrific.
just the absolute best streams.
You know, we've got good streams. We have the best streams here, full of my great words, the best words.
The best words. You can also get our best words at BADH_cast on Twitter. We don't tweet too much from there, but it does let you know, like, when we have new episodes, new bonus episodes, which we should have one up, like, 2 days prior to this episode going live. So if you're not a patron yet, you should. And speaking of patron, if you want to get in contact with us, even easier, you can join our Beating a Dead Horse Discord by becoming a patron over on patreon.com/BADHcast. There's no underscore on that one. My consistency is absolutely awful. I'm hoping to remember to fix that sometime in the next week or two. So get ready. I'm going to change it up on you. But if you do sign up over on Patreon, there's 3 tiers. The $1 tier gets you access to our Discord. The $5 and $10 tier gets you access to our bonus episodes. We have a bunch out. We've got more coming. They're all fucking great episodes. Like, just blown out episodes. They're really good.
We ain't even fooling. Though the bonus episodes are some of our best work. So if you're not a patron, you're missing out.
Yeah, we got some good stuff over there too. What Remains of Edith Finch, the one we're talking about a couple days ago or this month is Night of the Comet, which is a great fucking movie. Yeah, you should do that. And $10 patrons also can tell us what we're going to watch next. They're like, hey, I want you to watch this. So if you want to, for the cost of $10 a month, you can yell at us to watch stupid things. Some people want us to watch Tusk. Some people want us to watch Barbie and the Nutcracker. It's a great way to do it.
And you know what else you get? If you're a $10 patron, you get a special shout out at the end of every episode, just like this one. Thank you so much, Julia, Travis, Mom, Aunt Summer. Y'all are great. Thanks for keeping the lights on here.
You guys are absolutely wonderful, and we really appreciate it. We also appreciate Lords of the Highway for use of our theme song. It is Suicide Alternate Take off the album High Octane Low Expectations. They're available on Spotify, iTunes, all the places you can get music. I think they're on iTunes. I don't actually know. They're definitely on Spotify. But you should go hunt them down. You should go listen to their albums. You should go support them in any way you can. They're a great band. They've got a great set of discography. That wasn't a sentence, but we're going to pretend it was. Also, thanks to 25yearslatersite.com for the endorsement. There's a bunch of really talented people doing some really talented writing on news, on video games, on movies, on TV shows. It's all it's a bunch of analysis. It's a bunch of actual like upcoming news, interviews, all that good stuff. Go read their stuff. There's much better writers than I am on there, so you should do that. Also, next week, as we said, is Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark. We're not going to dive into our little mini-sode again, so just come back for it next week, and we'll tell you what we actually thought of it.
Gonna be great. Gonna be lit. Bye.